are gonna get crazy!
Most everyone's mad here.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. How are you all doing, everyone? Did you have a wonderful weekend? And considering that we are officially at the end of the month, did you all enjoy your July? Well, I know Jay Monty certainly did. Thank you for the subscription right there. So yes, we have entered upon a brand new episode, and we got a lot more crazy stories that we are about to get into. But before we do begin, I do have one significant update and a bit of an announcement in regards to the podcast. Now, you guys probably do remember last week when I talked about the situation in which the strike would probably affect my videos, or that there might have been a chance that it would. So it did get me a little bit worried, but long story short, I did contact SAG-AFTRA about the situation, and I later discovered that in terms of my main videos with what I do on my main channel, I am completely safe. I am allowed to do reviews, I'm allowed to do my videos, that is no problem right there. But I did also ask them in regards to my podcast, specifically in regards to talking about trailers. Would that be considered okay as well, just like movie reviews, or would that be considered promotion? And it took them a while to go and respond. They didn't go and immediately respond to me back, but it wasn't until Friday that I did get a message, and they actually told me that, yes, talking about trailers would legitimately be considered promotion. So that was honestly something that I wish I knew a little bit earlier. Hopefully they wouldn't consider me a scab for doing what I did in my previous episodes with talking about the trailers of Migration or Wonka or whatever. I did not mean to do so. I still stand with the strikers. So this is why I want to make the announcement that from here on out, until the strike is over, I will no longer be talking about any trailers. I don't want to take any risks whatsoever. So for now, I'm just putting trailers off the menu on this podcast until the strike is officially done. And on top of that, I have also updated the last two episodes of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast, both on YouTube and the audio version, where I did take away the moments where I would talk about the trailers. And no, I'm not planning to go and bring them back. So hopefully that will go and, absolve of my previous sins that I have done before, which, of course, I did not mean to do so. I did not mean to indirectly scab, if that would count as a scabbing, but just want to do everything I can to go and show my support while also trying to do my best to maintain the show. So I know that this is something that it might suck and I might miss out on some big trailers to go and discuss, but then again, this is for the best, and this is for the respect of the strikers. So again, it's only until this strike is over. I don't know when, but for now, this is how it is going to be. Also, another thing that I do want to mention is that there have been a couple of very unfortunate passings that have happened very recently. One of which is renowned animation and Disney historian Jim Korkis, who is sadly no longer with us and has passed away. I believe it was on Friday. So may the man rest in peace. And as an animation historian, or well, technically an amateur animation historian myself, I had great respects, or I have great respects for Jim Korkis and many of his works. In fact, there's one book that I really do cherish from Korkis, which is called quite literally How to Be a Disney Historian. So that's definitely a man I will certainly miss, and definitely a historian in which his levels are really on a very high level. It's going to be very hard to find anyone that could even reach up to his level. And another passing I would like to go and mention, and this is something that has happened on the day that I am recording this, or if you're watching this live, it's happening right now, or it was recently announced that Paul Reubens, aka Pee Wee Herman, has unfortunately passed away as well at the age of 70 due to cancer. It was a very unexpected announcement. It was something that he kept private, didn't make any official proclamations that he had it, which honestly, I completely understand, because if you want to have your private life, then like you should have your private life instead of making everything about you public. Very unfortunate, sadly, especially the fact that this man is a television icon, especially because of Pee Wee Herman. He really did taught an entire generation that you don't have to grow up when you do grow up. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's it's very unfortunate to see someone who is as iconic and as beloved by millions of people across a few generations, and is sadly gone. So may both Corcus and Reubens rest in peace. All right, so with that said and done, now that I have all that out of the way, it is now time that I shall go to the chat wall, and I would like to ask you all, are you ready for today's episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast? Are you all ready, folks? Let me go and see it. Let's see, are people prepared? Yes, okay. Yes, okay, I see. All right, finally. Now we do see it. And now, with all that said, it is time that we shall go and get things started. Oh, and actually, just one more thing I would like to do before we go and fully continue. I would just like to say, in respects of Paul Reubens and Pee Wee Herman, what I would like to do is something a little bit fun, like just to do an enjoyable little tribute where during this episode, I have in mind a secret word. There's going to be a secret word of the day for this episode. And during the time, I'm going to go onto the chat wall and I'll ask you guys your comments. If one of you say the secret word of the day, I will let you know. But anyways, now, in order to go and fully prepare myself for the first story that we got, we're going to give ourselves a break. First of all, I know that I really did comment a lot on the intro, so we're just going to go and have a quick refresh, at least for the sake of the ads that may come up. So I'll just go and activate that, and then we will be jumping into our first story. Yes, now it is time that we shall jump onto our first story. And with the first story that we have here, I would like to ask you all, do you guys remember 2020? Remember when we all faced the pandemic, or when it all began, and Hollywood was in a really tough position where they had to go and really delay all of their movies? Well, believe it or not, folks, considering that cinemas right now, or especially the big name movies, they are in a massive high on just making existing IPs and follow-ups and all that kind of stuff. Well, believe it or not, there is a sequel to it. And yes, even the big movie delays are having a sequel. And it's starting to go and happen, at the very least, with one studio, with Sony Pictures. Yes, because of the strike, or more specifically, because greedy CEOs don't want to fairly pay their actors and writers, they have announced, or at least Sony Pictures has announced, that they are going to be delaying a whole bunch of their films because of what is currently happening, where they're going to be taking many of their highly anticipated features and they're going to be pushing it back. Some of which are going to be moving all the way to 2024 when they're supposed to be coming out this year. In fact, in terms of the recent situation with what is going on with them, I'll just go and quickly read here from my source on The Hollywood Reporter. As it states, Sony is the first major Hollywood studios to blink and make a wholesale changes to its calendar since the SAG-AFTRA strike commenced July 14th. This doesn't include smaller specialty films that have moved as a result of the dual writers and actors strike. Sony's announcement confirms cinema owners' worst fears that the calendar for both this year and the next will see major disruptions. Other studios are still in a wait-and-see mode in terms of their big fall and winter tentpoles. Yeah! Well, thank you for the subscription, or thank you for the gifted subscription right there. I don't know if it's something that would be merited as a yeah moment. Oh, for once, it's not really well timed right there. But anyways, going back to what I was saying here, there's no telling how quickly that could change now that Sony has rearranged its schedule. The move could be seen as a sign that the unrest gripping Hollywood is not expected to have a resolution soon. And there are several of them that they have made, some that are a little bit small, but some can last for like several months. One good example is regarding Gran Turismo, in which that only did a small delay, originally scheduled to be released on August 11th. Now it is going to be pushed back by 2 weeks, where now the official release date of the film is going to be on August 25th. But then there is another one that has a little bit of a bigger delay, which is the sequel to Ghostbusters Afterlife. Now this... oh, excuse me, folks. Now, originally, this was supposed to be scheduled on December 20th, 2023. Now, you'd think Sony would go and make a big deal to make Ghostbusters their big holiday movie, but they have yet to do so, so maybe this was something that was a little bit expected. So they did delay it by a few months, going from December 20th of this year all the way to March 29th of 2024. So that's going to be their brand new release date in which they're going to go and put out the movie. Then there is also their Karate Kid movie. Apparently they're going to have another Karate Kid film coming up. And that one was supposed to come out on June 7th of next year. But now they're going to be heavily delaying that as well. To now, its release date is going to be December 13th, 2024. So almost half a year that it's getting a delay right there, or even it's a full-on half a year actually. But the biggest delay of them all would have to be Kraven the Hunter, the R-rated action-packed Spider-Man spin-off film. And in terms of that one, originally, it was supposed to come out on October 6th of this year. Funny enough, the day after my birthday. But Sony decided they're going to go and really push that one back, where now its new release date is going to be almost a whole year, where it's going to be out on August 30th, 2024. So yeah, they needed a lot more time on that one, apparently. There have been other little delays as well, or other switch-ups. These include the Madam Web movie, another Spider-Man spin-off. Instead of being released directly on Valentine's Day, it's only been delayed by 2 days, where now it's going to be released on February 16th. There is also the Blumhouse movie, They Listen, in which originally it was supposed to be coming out on August 30th, but now that this is Kraven the Hunter's new release date, they decided to go and pull out of it from their calendars. They don't know when they're going to go and officially release that movie, but it won't be August 30th anymore. But there is one little bright side to this, and it's the fact that they have officially scheduled 2 anticipated sequels. The first of which being Bad Boys 4, or the Bad Boys for Life sequel, in which that one is now officially going to come out on June 14th of next year. And then there is the third Venom movie, to which they decided they're going to go and release it on July 12th, 2024. But then there is one more movie that is worth mentioning, and debatably it is Sony Pictures' biggest movie, their most anticipated feature of them all, which is Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse. Now, originally, they have scheduled that film to come out on March 29th, 2024. Like, they've planned that for quite a while, actually. I think around the same time when they were planning things out with Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. But now that release date belongs to the sequel to Ghostbusters Afterlife. So as a result, Sony Pictures decided to go and pull that out from its schedule. We don't have an official release date as of yet, but trust me, this is going to be one where I will really be talking about. Like, there's a lot to go and discuss in terms of that matter. A lot of which I've already talked about technically, but we know why it is going to be delayed. We know why it doesn't have an official release date. So, yeah. Anyways, back to what I was talking about. Yes, apparently Sony Pictures is the first one to go and break, and that they would go and cause a whole bunch of delays. Now, we have heard rumors that there have been other studios that maybe they have been considering it. Like, there have been talks that maybe Disney would go and delay some of their movies, including Wish, where they would move that film to 2024. Although there is no official confirmation to that as of yet. Again, like the article says, they are in a bit of a wait and see kind of attitude. So maybe they will, maybe they won't. But still, though, the fact that there was one studio that officially commenced all these delays, it could cause a domino effect in which we will see other studios actually follow suit. So keep an eye out in the following weeks. Maybe we will see other studios that will try to adapt their schedule, mainly because Sony Pictures went and immediately changed up their schedule. So I can imagine that in a way, this could be a bit of a hit for Sony Pictures. And when I say a hit, I mean that this is going to be something that might end up doing some damage to the studio. Now, granted, so far, their year has been going very, very well, especially with the massive success of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. So there is a good chance that they can manage, you know, they'll be able to survive by delaying all of these major movies. You know, they don't necessarily need either Kraven the Hunter or Ghostbusters Afterlife at the end of the year. Like, they'll probably be fine with that. But still, though, this is going to be something in which, in the long run, like by the second half of 2023, now suddenly they won't see as much profits as they may have originally planned. So I can imagine this might be something that Sony Pictures will be suffering some long-term consequences. But they're probably hoping by now that by 2024, they can more than make things up, where they're going to have a whole bunch of movies. And honestly, it's actually very interesting to note that now 2024 is going to be filled with so many Spider-Man spin-off films. Like, originally, it was just that Madam Web movie. And there was at one point, there was that Mexican wrestler film that starred this character that only appeared in like literally a couple of Spider-Man comics, but they decided to go and pull that out. It was one that was about to star Bad Bunny, but I don't know what the fridge is going on. Maybe they canceled it, or who the fridge knows. Maybe they'll also delay that too. But it's interesting how now we actually have not one, not two, but 3 Spider-Man spin-off films, where they're going to go and start things off with Madam Web. Then after that, you got Venom 3. And then following afterwards, there's going to be Kraven the Hunter. So I don't know if that's going to be something that might be a bit of an overabundance of Spider-Man movies, or if people might feel a little bit like zoned out of superhero films, like, you know, the infamous superhero fatigue that some people may say. That I can see a bit of the pluses, because like that's going to be a lot of like Sony's big movies that they're going to go and put out. But then again, if it doesn't really work out to their advantage, then there may be a possibility that what is happening with DC right now, especially with the consequences of films like Black Adam, Shazam 2, and especially The Flash, maybe Sony might be seeing this as well. I mean, not all their Spider-Man movies are profitable. We have seen that with Morbius and how that became a box office bomb. So they really have to make sure that all of these movies can go and work out very well to them, that they got to be much more than just okay or just decent if they really want to go and make these movies massively profitable. I mean, we don't really know much about Madam Web, but then there's also the factor of Venom 3. And I mean, I understand why they would go and make that film, considering that the previous two movies are massive hits. But then again, the interests of those movies are, you know, they're kind of like dwindling, and many people agree that they're not necessarily the best Spider-Man movies. So I don't know if they can really go and maintain the interests of the Venom films and try to do that same shtick again and again and again. Like, maybe it'll work out, but especially with the fact that they're going to go and release it in the summer. I have yet to actually fully check on how that summer schedule is going to be, but if it's going to be anything like what we are seeing this summer, I honestly have a bit of my doubts that it might survive, or if it even turns out profitable for Sony. For me, I feel like with Venom 3, it's a bit of a 50-50 kind of deal, where maybe it'll be a hit or maybe it won't. Like, I feel like those possibilities are valid. But then there's also Kraven the Hunter, in which not too long ago, we actually did receive a trailer of how that movie is going to look like. And not to mention, as I already said before, this is going to be the first R-rated Spider-Man spin-off film, the movie in which many people wanted Venom to be, in which they don't skim on the violence whatsoever, and even on the trailer, they really don't hold back. But again, this needs to be something that would really deliver for fans. And I mean, considering that Sony Pictures has already set a massively high standard with the Spider-Verse movies, especially with Across the Spider-Verse, if Kraven the Hunter doesn't turn out to be really good, and I don't mean just good, but really good, again, this might be something that I feel like it's going to be a 50-50 chance. Maybe it'll turn out to be profitable, maybe it won't. I mean, a lot of people seem to be a bit iffy right now, especially with the fact that the character is not the same character as everybody remembers in the comics. This isn't the same Kraven the Hunter that would go and hunt down Spider-Man and stuff. This is almost like a completely different character. It's like the way that they're presenting in the trailer is very much like an environmentally friendly John Wick, which I can see how that can work out, but is it going to work out as a Spider-Man spin-off movie? That will remain to be seen. And especially regardless with how things are going to be with Kraven the Hunter, if things don't end up working out for either Venom or Madam Web, then that's going to set a low standard where at that point people may end up becoming very fatigued about it, and that's where they may end up losing money. So there is that possibility. So that's just in regards of those Spider-Man films in particular. I don't know if I really have much that I could say about some of the other movies, like with Bad Boys or Ghostbusters Afterlife 2. I mean, like, okay, they're going to be delayed, but I don't know if it's going to be something that could really affect their box office numbers. I can imagine that they're going to go and be fine there, especially with Bad Boys, you know, release in the beginning of the summer. That'll probably do fine. And then you also got Ghostbusters Afterlife at the end of March, which March and April can be considered a bit like a strong time for movies. So that I can imagine can do well. But then you got the big one that people really want to see. Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse. And let's be honest, folks, the fact that Sony Pictures revealed that they had to pull it out of its release date and has not put a new one since, honestly, that is a bit predictable. We all kind of expected it, especially with what was recently reported about the production of Across the Spider-Verse and how that one was a massive nightmare to be working on, especially with the toxic work ethics of Phil Lord and Chris Miller. And one thing that a lot of people really pointed out in that article, and what they really have noticed, is the fact that in terms of Beyond the Spider-Verse, apparently they are way behind. Like, it's the kind that everybody working at Sony Pictures Animation knew that it was impossible for Beyond the Spider-Verse to be released at the end of March of 2024. Especially the fact when they had yet to start working on the animation. Or at the very least, by the time Across the Spider-Verse came out, they did not do a single piece of animation for the movie itself. Like, maybe they experimented with some animation tests, but in terms of actual animation to be put onto the actual movie, none of it was done. Maybe there was a little bit nowadays was actually made, but nah, like, the progress is like a lot slower than what Sony Pictures probably hoped for. And not to mention, there was also another report in which the voice actors is pretty much the same story, where none of the voices actually recorded any of their lines for the final film. So I think even at that, it feels like for now, the story may not necessarily be fully complete. In fact, there's actually one little part here in the article that actually states what is the progress in terms of the story. It's actually right here, to which it states, this year's Across the Spider-Verse was delayed 8 months before finally opening June 2nd. For a Hollywood Reporter profile in May, writer-producers Phil Lord and Chris Miller said they were still in the process of figuring out Beyond the Spider-Verse, with Miller noting the beginning and end were pretty solidified, and the middle was a bit squishy. And star Haley Steinfeld, who I believe is the voice of Gwen Stacy, told The Hollywood Reporter in a story published in early June that she had done no voice work for the sequel yet. So honestly, they are way behind, and especially with the strike that is going on right now, it seems like the process or the progression of the production has been put to a grinding halt. Like right now, it is on a massive pause. So in that regard, I'll just say right now, yes, technically the strike is causing a delay in Spider-Verse. Like right now, they can't really do anything because they have none of the dialogue that the animators could actually work with. And even at that, they're still pretty slow in the process. They haven't fully figured out the story, and there's no actual animation that has yet to legitimately be done. And even at that, from what we have heard with the working process of Lord and Miller, even if they have done some animation, there's a very high chance that it's going to be rejected anyways. In fact, I'll even say that it's not just the strike that's causing the delay, it's Lord and Miller themselves. Like, it's also their fault. And even if there was no strike to begin with, neither from writers or actors, the movie would have still been delayed anyways. So at this point, you might be wondering, though, if it's not going to be released next year, then when is it going to come out? Well, considering the fact that they already made 2024 very busy in terms of Spider-Man movies, that we already got Madam Web, Venom, and Kraven the Hunter, it would be a bit too stupid for Sony to go and release Beyond the Spider-Verse after all that, because if there is a chance that superhero fatigue could end up getting hit on Sony's Spider-Man movies, then it could also end up hitting on Beyond the Spider-Verse. So that's why I think there is a very strong chance that it's either going to be coming out at this point by 2025, or I would even say 2026. Like, at the earliest, I would say that they're going to put out Beyond the Spider-Verse in June of 2025. You know, pull the same kind of release date as Across the Spider-Verse, because that has proven to go very, very well, and what is debatably Sony Animation's most successful movie. So honestly, I could see that happening again with Beyond the Spider-Verse. So they could probably go and do that. Or at the latest, if they still need more time, then probably 2026. I think that could also be another option as well, depending on how much time that they need. And especially the fact that, again, this is Sony Pictures' most anticipated movie that they have so far. They've established an amazing picture with Across the Spider-Verse, and if they're going to go and close off that trilogy, then they need a near perfect finale. Like, honestly, something like they cannot even accept just great. They need like something that is near perfect to go and meet those high expectations. They've already done so with both Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, but let's see if they need Beyond the Spider-Verse to go and do that again, because honestly, they cannot afford to not do so. I'm just saying. So that's pretty much the whole report with all the movie delays that have been going on. And now with that said, I would like to go into the chat wall and I would like to ask you all, how do you feel about all the movie delays that have been going on with Sony Pictures? Are there some that you're disappointed by? What do you think about the changes themselves? And do you think there are going to be other studios that will follow suit? Let me know what you think on this. All right, let's see. I'll start with Sony. I honestly only care for Spider-Verse, and I'm glad the film is delayed indefinitely, and hope they can take it easy with it. As for Disney, Wish is the only one they cannot delay because it will break the point of Disney's 100th anniversary. I'm sure the crew will fight to keep the release date, and also the production is now complete. If Disney wants to promote Wish with interviews, why not use directors? They really deserve the praise they deserve because Chris and Fawn are absolutely, and the comment just stops there. No, I mean, I absolutely agree with you. Like, the directors definitely do deserve to have more attention, and yeah, they should have more credit to go and, like, the credit of creating this movie and being the directors, especially with Chris Buck, considering that he also was the director of the Frozen movies. I mean, like, it would definitely have some appeal to say one of the Frozen movies is here talking about his new movie, Wish, like that would definitely be perfect. But for me personally, like, I am definitely excited for Wish, but also I do not want to see Wish being delayed because, again, like the commenter says, it's just gonna go and break the whole point of the 100th anniversary of Disney, since, like, technically it's meant to be that massive celebration. All right, let's see what we got here. Well, who didn't see that coming, especially Beyond the Spider-Verse? I'm really excited for it, but at the same time, a delay was long overdue. As for others, I won't be losing too much sleep over the Kraven delay and the Gran Turismo director saying the audience will promote it. Yeah, remember last time that happened? Here's hoping the unions get fairly paid soon and overall flimped. Yeah, just flimped. I don't know what it means, but it sounds cool. Yeah, I know. I'm just saying right now, no matter but like during the break, the chat wall was trying to go and guess what would be the secret word of the day for this episode, and no, it's not flimped, it's not flint or anything like that. You can keep trying, but no, that ain't it. Let's see what else we got here. So, I'm actually okay with these delays. We all knew it was coming, so we have time to accept it. However, I realized that maybe isn't as hopeful with Spider-Verse as I thought. Spider-Verse is very dependent on Lord and Miller, as much of the work issues came from one of them changing their minds even with the finished animation. The animators only have the script Miller and Lord worked on before the strike. They are striking right now, and thus after the strike ends, they might demand changes. I mean, that is definitely true, considering that what was reported, Phil Lord is the kind that can never, like, set his mind in one place. Like, no matter what, maybe the next day he's going to change his idea, and the day after that, he'll change it again. Let's see, what else do we have here? What other comment is there? Aside from Beyond the Spider-Verse, I wasn't going to see any of those movies anyway, so no skin off my back. In the grand scheme of things, though, this has huge implications for all movie studios. We're definitely entering a critical phase in the strike, and the burden is now on the studios to compromise with their actors and writers for better wages, respect, and treatment. Nope. What a buoyancy, vacuous, Cambodia. No, it's not it, folks. It's not it. Come on, the less you try, the more chances you'll get to actually getting the secret word of the day. Anyways, I turned 24 yesterday on my birthday. Oh, happy birthday. And I got a chance to see Shamik Moore over at GalaxyCon in Raleigh this weekend, so I'm happy to have the moment. Hearing the delay from Sony gives us a sign that, yeah, it's going to be 2020 all over again, given how strikes have been going. I'm not surprised that Beyond the Spider-Verse gets delayed, even without the strikes, given was was behind what happened behind the scenes, but as long as it gets delayed so that the animators can get better treatment, then it should be fine. Better treatment? I don't know. Sony is not necessarily known for giving their animators better treatment. I mean, there's a reason why they are dependent on having a non-union studio in Vancouver to supply their animation. I'm just saying. All right, I think I'm going to read one more comment before we move on to the next story. Let's see. I guess it was inevitable for this to happen. I'm not surprised in the slightest that Beyond the Spider-Verse got delayed, though I'm kind of upset about Kraven, mainly because of how that leaves a big gap in the fall 2023 schedule. Overall, though, I'm just going to take a guess that we are probably going to have more delays in the future from other studios. It sucks, but if the AMPTP doesn't want to pay their writers and actors and keep portraying themselves as villains, then so be it. All right, so now we're going to go and have another break right now. And when we do return, we will be discussing something a little bit more about animation. But let's just say there is a dark chance that it might set a new standard in terms of animated movies, or more specifically, which animated movies come out in theaters. All right, folks, so moving on up to the next story, we are going to be talking about Paramount. And this week, Paramount has a big week coming up for them because they're going to release their brand new animated feature, which so far has been gathering a lot of great reviews, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. And they're already gathering a lot of major hype, not just with those new reviews, but on top of that, they have also announced that there's going to be a sequel coming up, and there is also going to be a brand new show based on Mutant Mayhem. But that's not necessarily what I will be talking about here. What I will be discussing instead is actually something that has been brought up in this article right over here. This Variety article called "After a Decade in Limbo, Brian Robbins is giving Paramount a makeover with Ninja Turtles, Tom Cruise, and Gladiator 2. This is an article written by Brett Lang, and they would go and discuss with the head of Paramount Pictures, Brian Robbins, and what he is going to do in order to really change up Paramount's image to go and give the company a massive boost, you know, give them a good leg in the competition. And of course, they would go and discuss a lot of stuff that they have very soon, especially with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. So they're going to go and build up all that hype. But one thing that has caught the attention of many people is actually near the end of this article, like right near the bottom, to which they have discussed about what's going on with the future offerings of Paramount Animation, or at least with Paramount's animation division. And it's actually this right over here that has a lot of people talking, to which it states, reading from my source on Variety, costs may be rising while the box office is contracting, but Robbins sees areas of opportunity. He overhauled Paramount's animation division, raiding Nickelodeon's vault, and jettisoning projects that he didn't think were commercial. Under the Boardwalk, a movie about hermit crabs on the Jersey Shore that predated Robbins, will debut on Paramount Plus, not in theaters. We're not going to release an expensive original animated movie and just pray people will come, he says. Instead, the studio's upcoming animated releases will center on familiar properties such as SpongeBob SquarePants and Avatar: The Last Airbender, which Robbins thinks will appeal to millennials who grew up with the show. So in that regard, a lot of people really got upset over what Brian Robbins has mentioned here. And a lot of people have read this thinking that this means that Paramount Animation will end up doing a whole lot less original animated features and they will never be releasing original animated films on the big screen. They're just going to go and immediately chuck it onto Paramount Plus like they're trying to do with Under the Boardwalk, and I believe they have done so with another movie with, I believe it was Rumble. I forgot if it was either released in 2021 or 2022, but I remember they did the same thing, although that one is more because of COVID, of course. But even though that a lot of people got upset and they heavily criticized Brian Robbins, and a lot of people have corrected me that it was 2021. Thank you for the correction. So a lot of people did get mad of the insinuation of what this comment is bringing up, which is why the head of Paramount Animation, Ramsey Nato, actually came forward with her message in regards to the current progress of Paramount Animation and what they are doing in terms of original IPs. And this is what she has to say over here, reading from my source on Animation Magazine. As it states, acknowledging that we at Paramount have been careful about the concepts we decide to embrace for theatrical and make sure they are big and juicy and that there's hooks in them. We are absolutely committed to making original animated films that are in development and on a handful of projects. Brian and I believe we are nothing without fresh voices, faces, and narratives, and it's our responsibility to add new perspectives, modern characters, and vernacular to our culture of storytelling. Originals speak authenticity to today's audiences, must be handled with care, and make their own mark in our legacy library, and hopefully stand the test of time. That said, we're not a one-size-fits-all kind of studio, and our budget are designed to support the scope of our storytelling. So that's pretty much the big thing. The massive controversy that Brian Robbins got over his comment in regards to original animated features. And then we got the response from Ramsey Nato trying to go and settle with the PR to say that we're still making original films. And on that regard, I just gotta say that, honestly, it is a pretty interesting take that we've seen from Brian Robbins. Because the interesting factor is that one thing you do have to keep in mind is that before he was the head of Paramount, Brian Robbins was the head of Nickelodeon. And he definitely put in some strong effort to keep that Nickelodeon engine going. But during his time as the head of Nickelodeon, not many people were happy with the way that he was managing the channel, especially with the fact that he doesn't necessarily give a lot of great opportunities for new properties or brand new shows. Like, he was in charge of Nickelodeon during the time when the channel was very dependent on SpongeBob SquarePants and The Loud House, that apparently they set a standard that all the other shows had to go and meet. And if you don't meet them, well, you end up becoming gone after like a season or two. It's the way that he would go and manage, and already people have this established perspective of Brian Robbins that he's the kind of guy who is not necessarily a big fan of new IPs, that he wouldn't necessarily give them a major chance, and instead he would be more dependent on existing IPs and rebooting them and making new content and trying to recycle with what the existing IPs have, which is why we do have many reboots and spin-offs to shows like SpongeBob, Rugrats, and more. So honestly, with Brian Robbins saying that he doesn't really care much about releasing original animated movies onto the big screen, that is honestly something that feels in line with the way that he used to run Nickelodeon. It feels like whatever he learned in terms of his business strategies on Nick, he just brings them back onto Paramount Pictures and really apply that there. So really, there should be not that much of a surprise that he would put original animated features as a bit of a side note, that he would consider them a low priority when compared to the stuff that are bigger IPs, such as SpongeBob or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, for example. However, I will say, though, that with Ramsey Nato suddenly stepping in and saying that, oh, well, they are still making original animated features. Now, that is one thing that I will say I do believe. I honestly believe what Ramsey Nato and Brian Robbins are saying, that I can imagine that at Paramount Animation, they have a whole bunch of original ideas that they want to go and execute. Like, I can imagine, like, there is no shortage of originality that's going on at Paramount Animation. But here's the thing, though. I kind of feel like, at least in my opinion, I believe both Ramsey Nato and Brian Robbins in terms of what they are saying. Like, yeah, I know there's going to be a whole bunch of original movies that Paramount Animation is going to bring out, but I also do believe that many of them might end up on Paramount Plus. Because the thing with what Brian Robbins is saying, I honestly do believe it. I honestly do believe that there is this brand new standard that is going on at Paramount Animation, or at least with Paramount Pictures, in terms of the original animated movies that they have, that a lot of them are just going to end up on Paramount Plus because Brian Robbins doesn't necessarily believe that it's going to be a massive box office hit, or at least compared to the stuff that are already existing IPs and stuff like that. That's honestly something I could really imagine. And not to mention that with Brian Robbins, with the possibility that he may go and do this, the problem with it is that there are already other studios that are doing this right now. And one great example is in regards to DreamWorks Animation. Now, we have recently seen DreamWorks releasing an original animated feature, and it ended up becoming the biggest animated bomb of the year. And that is especially the case with Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken. I mean, I've already talked about this story before, but you all remember what happened, where Ruby Gillman was released, barely got much marketing from Universal, and it ended up being completely washed over. Like, it was practically dead on arrival. So in that regard, Ruby Gillman turned out to be a flop, and a big part of it is most likely because of the fact that it's an original IP. It's not something like Trolls 3 or Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, in which they already got some iconography that many people immediately recognize that they can go and easily promote. So the thing is with DreamWorks is that they know that original content is going to be very hard to go and promote and to present. So instead of releasing them in theaters, they're going to start releasing original IPs on Netflix. And you probably remember the announcement that DreamWorks made at Annecy that there's going to be a brand new original animated feature called Orion and the Dark. And that's only going to be coming out on Netflix, the first time that DreamWorks Animation has done so with their movies. So we're kind of already seeing that happen. And not to mention that, considering the next movies that they have coming up are just going to be sequels with Trolls 3 and Kung Fu Panda 4, so I can imagine the same is definitely going to apply with DreamWorks Animation. Now, their original movies are just going to be exclusive to streaming. And honestly, there may be a small chance that maybe original animated films might be put out on the big screen from DreamWorks. But for now, it looks like their original IPs are going to find a new home directly onto Netflix. And not to mention, I have heard rumors that Sony Animation might actually follow suit. I mean, sure, they got the Spider-Verse movies that they can easily go and put that out in theaters. But when it comes to the original content that they have coming soon, I've heard talks that apparently they're just going to go and reserve that just for Netflix, that they're just going to go and put that out directly onto streaming with no question. One of the movies I have heard that could go directly to Netflix is that K-pop Demon Hunter movie. Remember when that was announced? Apparently that one is going to go directly to Netflix because it's an original IP. There's not really that much of a good chance that Sony could find a way and go and properly promote that onto the big screen, so they may go and continue that. So honestly, overall, with this whole situation, I do understand why many people are upset with what Brian Robbins had said. I mean, personally myself, I would love to see more original content come out on the big screen, because we are at the point where original movies, and especially original animated films, are becoming more and more of an endangered species. So in that regard, as much as I would love to see it, I also do believe that studios are just going to go and pitch most, if not all, their original animated features directly onto streaming, rather it be on Netflix, on Amazon, on Paramount Plus, or whatever. And especially with a company like Paramount Plus, or with a company like Paramount, I can imagine that they can have a bit of a hard time trying to go and promote their features if they are not based on an existing IP like either SpongeBob or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So in that regard, I just feel like there is a strong possibility where I feel like what Brian Robbins said is true. And again, it's going to end up setting a bit of a brand new standard that we are going to see in animated movies. And I know many people are not going to be happy about it, but I mean, it's just how the climate of Hollywood is right now. It's the fact that right now, like even like when you look at what's coming up in terms of like the new movies that are coming out, in terms of big movies, the only original ones that are going to be coming out are 3 animated films: Migration, Wish, and Elio. And that's pretty much it. It's hard to think about anything else that isn't like a smaller budgeted B movie or something like that. So yeah, that's just something that I would like to go and comment and at least put in my piece on the whole situation. All right, so with that said, I would like to go into the chat wall, and I would like to ask you all, how do you feel about what Paramount Animation is doing right now? Do you feel like they're going to be pitching their original movies onto Paramount Plus? How do you feel about the current state of original animated movies? I would like to know what you think on all this. All right, so let's see what we got here. While this does spell a troubling future for Paramount, considering the box office return of Wonder Park and Sherlock Gnomes, it is a little unsurprising. If I do have to suggest a workaround, I recommend implementing a pattern: one original, one IP, one original, one IP, etc. So that way, Brian Robbins won't be giving original IPs a fate worse than being shoved to Nicktoons. Ask your Nickelodeon loving friends what that means. Oh, trust me, I know that vocabulary. I know that Nicktoons is like the graveyard of Nickelodeon shows, or that Nicktoons is more like what is it? It's the Green Mile. It's basically the Green Mile of animated programming from Nickelodeon. I think that's the best way to put it. So I do understand that. Let's see what other comments are there. This is just really sad. The way you're treating original... it's really sad the way you're treating original animated movies. For me, I enjoy original ideas such as Rango, Elemental, and Turning Red. And sure, Ruby Gillman and Rumble are not great, but at least they're still original. This is just a big slap to the face for those movies. Please give original ideas attention and love, Brian Robbins. Again, I have no trouble with the fact that they are going to be releasing original movies. Like, honestly, I know they're going to be releasing plenty of original features. It's just regarding if they'll be putting them out in theaters or not, that is a big mystery. Let's see what we got here. Honestly, this sounds really, really concerning. The other executive sounds like she's speaking in platitude than actual reassurance of original films that are being made. Honestly, it wouldn't be surprising if the original animated movies would be the first to purge like Max and Disney Plus. I don't want original films to be straight to streaming, especially since the animators might not be paid residuals. We need to make Wish and Elio successful, otherwise all we'll get is sequels. Actually, I don't know if animators do actually get residuals from the movies that they do work, so I don't know if I could go and immediately comment onto that. And yeah, there is something that is a little bit concerning, considering that what Ramsey Nato said, like, yeah, She reassured us that Paramount Animation is going to be making original animated movies. But are you going to be making original animated movies for the big screen, or are you just going to be putting them out on Disney Plus? Because there could be a major difference right there. Let's see what other comments are there. This is honestly really disappointing. The fact that Paramount would focus more on existing properties than original projects is upsetting. While I will admit there are some exciting stuff I'm excited for, like the Avatar The Last Airbender content, I just want to see more original projects since they are more rare. Then again, Brian Robbins is the man who oversaturated SpongeBob, so really, what else should I expect at this point? Yeah, exactly. Let's see, what else do we have here? With how successful movies like Spider-Verse, Puss in Boots, and Mario movie are, it would make some sense to make less original movies. But for me, I think the major problem for these original movies is that they are just not marketed well. Ruby Gillman and Elemental are great examples of just how terrible the marketing has been for both of them. It almost feels like they forgot to even promote their movies nowadays. Yeah, you got a point, man. It's a situation that's not necessarily funny in terms with how their marketing looks. Let's see, what else do we have here? On one hand, I could see where Brian Robbins is coming from. Original movies are very hard to market, especially in this age of IPs and existing franchise. However, it really doesn't give both Robbins and Paramount Animation a good image by saying that. Yeah, Ruby Gillman was a flop, but what about Elemental? Even if it wasn't a massive hit, it still was able to get attention of audiences despite it being original. If budgeted responsibly and marketed well, I don't see the problem there. Which is actually very ironic considering that Brian Robbins actually used Elemental as one of the examples of why he actually thought this way. Where was that? It was actually, yeah, like right over here, to which it says, it's not about Disney and Pixar anymore, he says, noting that recent Disney films like Elemental and Lightyear have stumbled at the box office. People are looking for animated movies that are irreverent and have a comedic point of view. Or basically stuff that people are familiar with, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, SpongeBob, and Avatar The Last Airbender. All right, I'll read one more comment before we go and move on to our next break. Just want to see who could I go and... all right, you know what? I'll just go right over here. Thing is, we did this to ourselves. We made Spider-Verse a hit, gave Mario movie over $1 billion. We got mad that a glorified Lego commercial wasn't nominated for Best Animated Feature for corn's sakes. We say that we want more original movies, but we never show up and support them. Well, I mean, it really does depend, because if you are someone who would go and watch original movies, like if you actually bought a ticket for something like Elemental or even Ruby Gillman, then honestly, you are exempt from the issue. But it is true, technically. There is that sad reality where, as much as we would want to see original features more and more frequently, like, what the public wants more is the stuff that they are familiar with. That's why right now at the box office, the things that are dominating right now are Barbie, Oppenheimer, which technically is based on the true story about the making of the atom bomb, so there is that familiarity, and the Haunted Mansion. All of these existing IPs, and right now, they are leading the box office. So in a way, is it something that could we really blame the executives for, or do we blame the public in terms of their tastes? I don't know. All right, one thing I will say, though, I'm surprised that people have yet to go and say the secret word of the day, because it was actually a word that I have mentioned often that the chat wall has yet to say when I was reading the comments over here. So just keep that in mind of what that secret word of the day could be. But we are going to go on to our next break, and when we do return, we will be discussing with what's going on in terms of the strike. And there is one comment in particular about it that really has become pretty controversial in terms of the current situation of how SAG-AFTRA is handling the entire strike and how people are working. So stay tuned for that one. Now, it is time that we shall go on to our next story. And with the next story that we have over here, we are going to have an update in terms of the SAG-AFTRA strike. But this time around, it actually revolves around a controversy regarding what one actress stated in regards of this entire situation, which actually did brought up some interesting conversations. In fact, this is actually something that a buddy of mine actually showed me, and we actually talked a bit, like went back and forth about the situation and what would be our thoughts on the matter, because it is something that does feel a little bit complex. So I figured, why the fridge not? It feels like a very interesting discussion to have over here. So let's go and talk about Sarah Silverman. Yes, Sarah Silverman here actually has some very interesting words that she would like to say in regards to what actors are doing during the strike, or specifically the actors who are currently working on indie films during the strike. And you know what? Instead of me explaining how she feels, I'm gonna let Sarah Silverman say it herself, considering that she did put up a video on Instagram regarding the situation, which thankfully Delayin actually did put out. So let's go and have a listen to what Sarah Silverman would have to say.
Can somebody explain to me what I'm not understanding? Oh, I have a stuffy nose all of a sudden. Because I feel fucking pissed off, and I know I just must
Strong
not be
language, by the way.
something. There are like 40 movies being made right now. Movie stars are making movies because they're independent movies, and SAG is allowing it because if they do sell it to streaming, it has to be because streaming is abiding by all the things we're asking for. That's just working. I mean, the strike ends when they come to the table and we make a deal and agreement. So that is going to be what happens. So you're just letting people make movies, and movie stars are making movies that, you know, the goal is to sell them to streaming. And they're just, but the streaming service has to agree. Yeah, that's called the end of the strike, which is now going to be probably exponentially prolonged because they have movie stars making movies. Like, the strike is supposed to be, especially when SAG joined the strike, it's movie stars aren't making movies for you anymore. Now what are you going to do? Well, they're making movies. What the fuck? I got offered an indie movie. I fucking said no. And so did a bunch of my friends. And now some of my friends are saying yes. And I'm really pissed. Please explain to me why I shouldn't be angry, because people are making real deal sacrifices. People, writers, actors, crew people, all these people are making they're sacrificing their livelihood for this cause. It's called Union Strong, where we are all together. And when SAG joined the strike, we should see every movie star out there striking along, because you have insurance because of your union, and you get residuals because of your union. And all these things that you get because of your union, and you can't stand with your union. So I don't know if I'm mad at these movie stars that are making these indie movies that are obviously going to go to streaming, or am I mad at SAG for making this interim deal for these indie movies? Like, what the fuck? It's scabbing. You've made that so clear that it's scabbing. Now all of a sudden, movie stars can make movies if they're indie movies where they promise they'll only sell it if X, Y, and Z. That's called the end of the strike, motherfucker.
So, yeah, I should have probably warned you a little bit before about the language. But yes, as you can see, Sarah Silverman is very much upset that there seems to be this hypocrisy going on, that actors are supposed to not work in movies, but apparently the indie movies seem to be okay. And she's wondering, why should she not be upset? Well, apparently SAG-AFTRA actually did respond to that. In this article over here, it actually does lay out what is SAG-AFTRA's strategy in terms of those interim agreements. Like, why is it okay for actors to go and work on some indie movies when they're not supposed to be working on movies or whatever to begin with? And they actually laid out their strategy. Like, I'll just read right over here. Like, there's a lot that they would go and describe, which honestly is worth reading for yourself. But in this case here, I'm just going to go and highlight right over here, because this is the one that pretty much brings up like all the bullet points as to the purpose of the interim agreements. Like, why is it actually a good thing for the strike that they do have these smaller productions that are going on in agreement with what SAG-AFTRA is asking? So let me just go and like quickly read that to you. This interim agreement was created for several reasons, all of which are aimed at protecting the interests of our members, helping them successfully navigate the strike, and demonstrating to the AMPTP that other producers are eager to work with our members under these terms. The interim agreement ensures that our members are able to work for these non-struck companies. Working with these independent producers proves that the wage increases and other terms to which the AMPTP has so far rejected are in fact reasonable and appropriate. If and when an interim agreement project is distributed during the strike, members will receive the full benefit of the improved terms of our agreement. Prior to a ratified deal with the AMPTP stemming from our negotiations, the agreement will demonstrate that our proposed residual formulas, including the streaming revenue sharing, are economically viable within our industry. After a ratified deal with the AMPTP, the interim agreement will conform to our final terms of which will fairly compensate and protect our members. The interim agreement encourages production budgets to be directed to union-covered projects, employing union members rather than fueling a pipeline of non-union foreign productions. So in that regard, as you could probably imagine, ever since Sarah Silverman made that comment, she did do an update regarding what her new perspective on the strike is, in which, once again, she actually did do another TikTok video. So this time, let me warn you right now, there is going to be a lot of swearing. So let's go and check out her new update on this.
Okay, I met with SAG leadership last night in the form of Fearless Fran Drescher and Duncan Crabtree Ireland. Doesn't that just sound like I just said 3 random words? Duncan Crabtree, man, woman, TV, camera. Sorry, this is what it is. So the interim agreements means that these indie productions are agreeing and adhering to all the terms that SAG wants, the ideal version of what we're fighting for. And then anyone who wants to buy those productions on streaming or cable or whatever AMPTP owned movie theater, etc., they have to adhere to those SAG terms or whatever, what has finally been agreed upon at the end of all of this, which will likely be something a little less than everything SAG wants, but still be great. So from the SAG leadership's perspective, this shows the AMPTP, it proves to them that what we're asking for is not unreasonable and can be done, and in fact is being done. And it forces them to either participate in it if they want the product, the film or the TV show, or, as Fran says, like maybe these indie productions find new avenues, new partners, new places, and that's beautiful, and I love a dreamer. And I hope I'm, being cynical, but from, the other perspective, it feels like some people are being allowed to make TV and movies, some truly independent stuff, some total bullshit with like a real stink of loophole-iness, in my opinion. And these projects will be shot and edited and in the can and ready to go with a bow on it for when the strike is over. They'll be ready to sell to streamers, albeit at our new deal rates. And I think that feels shitty to some people because they've been asked to sacrifice so much, all under the precipice that, hey, we're all in this together and it only works if we're all in it together. So, but then on the other hand, I'm so happy that at least, a whole bunch of crew members are going to be able to work, on narrative projects. Like, it's a little bit of a release valve for a whole bunch of people who have been paying a really shitty price for our strikes. And then on other hand, people have been on the picket lines in 95-degree weather every day and pelting sun, and picketing is crucial. But make no mistake, it's performative. Its purpose is to bring eyes to the movement, to the cause. And the cause is that every single one of us is striking. This cause is a work stoppage. That's our power. So that's how other people feel. So there you go. The black and white and all the shades of gray, as much as my pea brain can process it. So I hope that I described the different perspectives clearly and fairly. And I will say, for me, I feel extremely comfortable agreeing to disagree and working together, picketing and telling the AMPTP that they can fucking kick rocks. Because the truth is, we all want the same thing. We want a swift end to this strike. We want to get back to work, having won crucial new benefits. So whichever side of this particular issue you fall on, we can't let disagreeing on it weaken our resolve. So we need to take our pointing, accusing fingers, I'll take mine first, and move them firmly towards the AMPTP together. Union strong, baby.
So yes, I know there was definitely a lot, but that's pretty much the whole situation with Sarah Silverman's comments. And one thing that I will say right now is that there is a part of me that I will admit that I do understand where she is coming from. Like, I understand why she is upset, and I understand that. And like, one thing that I definitely do see is her passion for the strike, because what she wants is for literally all the actors to come together, to literally have everyone and anyone to come forth, that we all come together to stop Hollywood from producing their craft. And if they want to come back, then they have to go and abide to their deal. Like, to get as many people as possible, and especially to get as many big celebrities as possible. Because I know there are some actors, including, I think it's Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway, who have agreed to work on an indie movie that is going on during the strike. I don't know if this article on Deadline actually mentions it. I know there have been some notable celebrities who have been on who have been working during the strike, but anyways, okay, I haven't found it, but you do get what I mean. But you know, it's a scenario that, all the actors should be forming together, especially the big name ones. And I mean, like, especially with the new movies that have been coming out, especially that cinema has been like more popular than it ever was before, probably like the most popular that it has ever been since the pandemic began. Where imagine how awesome would it be where you would see people like Cillian Murphy, Emily Blunt, Florence Pugh, Matt Damon, and Robert Downey Jr. Picketing at Universal, like showing their support for the strike. Or you would see Margot Robbie, Ryan Gosling, Simu Liu, Michael Cera, and America Ferrera protesting in front of Warner Brothers. Or even if you would get Jamie Lee Curtis, Owen Wilson, Rosario Dawson, and Danny DeVito picketing in front of Disney. Like, you know, like how great would that be where like all these great celebrities who are recently getting attention for their acting skills and now presenting that they support the strike. And I know some of them that I have mentioned are strong supporters of the strike, including Jamie Lee Curtis, which is basically why you don't see her talking about the Haunted Mansion or anything. But, you know, like it's something that I do understand. Like you need as much people as possible to spread the message and to make it clear that actors and writers should have their fair pay. Like I get that. But then on the other hand, though, there's only so much that I really could agree upon. Like as much as I do admire Sarah Silverman's passion for this strike, technically these actors who are working on indie projects and on those like interim agreements, they're not doing anything wrong, though. I mean, technically they are still actors. They still need jobs. They still need to go and get paid. And not to mention like crew members that are also affected by this, in which many productions have been stopped because of all these strikes. So like a lot of these people still need jobs, especially when it comes to actors. So, you know, they still got bills to pay. They still need to go and actually have some work to do. So in that regard, they have done nothing wrong. And I think SAG-AFTRA has made it very clear about the purpose of these interim agreements and for these indie movies to continue working on, you know, to work on their productions. Like they are a key role in actually helping out the strikers and helping out the actors, that you can actually go and produce movies and projects and whatever in the agreements that SAG-AFTRA wants. So it's to go and set that example to the studios. And not to mention that I feel like, honestly, like I am familiar with this. I understand where Sarah Silverman is coming from, where she is passionate to a fault, that she's kind of letting her emotions get the best of her, where she's not necessarily seeing like who is really affected or how, like, who's causing all of this, because she wants all actors to fight against the studios. But then again, it's not necessarily all the studios that are the enemy right over here. It's only the major ones like Sony, Warner Brothers, Universal, Disney, Paramount, Lionsgate, and all those major companies out there. Like the small independent ones, you know, like A24 or whatever, technically they did nothing wrong. They're fine. They're cool with the strike, and they have agreed with a deal on a deal with SAG-AFTRA to keep making movies under the contract that SAG-AFTRA wants. So in that regard, it's a little like, in a way, Sarah Silverman is a little bit blinded by rage because of the entire strike scenario. And like, yeah, like it is a scenario where you want to go and throw your attacks at the enemy, but she's been throwing out her attacks so much to the point that it is becoming dangerous, and that she's hurting allies as much as she is hurting enemies. So honestly, in that regard, like it's a bit of an iffy situation with what Sarah Silverman is saying, that she does bring up a good point that many actors, or all the actors, should come together to go and fight against the strike. This is a moment where like everyone in the entertainment industry, like writers, actors, animators, or whatever, should band together to go and fight against greedy CEOs. That I understand. And in that regard, yes, she does have a good point. But when it comes to interim projects, when it comes to working on movies, honestly, like, yeah, you're on strike, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't be working anymore. And with what SAG-AFTRA is offering, it is a smart strategy. It is a good idea, not only to go and prove their point that their deals can actually be good for them and for the studios, but also to keep actors working so that they can have a payment. And I mean, even the discussions about residuals, it has been proven again and again and again that residuals are like next to nothing nowadays. Even the big celebrities, when they would get residuals, they don't really get that much in the first place. So that's why I want to go and bring this up with you all, because I feel like this is a very interesting discussion, and to go discuss about interim projects that SAG-AFTRA has agreed to let continue. Because it would seem confusing and a little bit hypocritical where there are some feature films that are still in production and that actors are going to be working on. But then again, there is actually logic to this. There is an explanation. So in that regard, I think, I think it's just Sarah Silverman letting her passion get the best of her, where like she has all the right intentions, but she didn't have enough of an understanding of what some of the strategies are for, including the interim projects. All right, so with that said, though, I would like to go into the chat wall, and now I want to ask you all, how do you feel about Sarah Silverman's comments regarding the situation with the SAG-AFTRA strike and the interim agreements? Do you agree with her? Do you not agree with her? Like, which side are you on here? I would like to know what you think here. All right, let's see what we got. She never was the same after she went turbo to live in Slaughter Race. On one hand, I do kind of get where she's coming from in parts, but on the other hand, dudes still need jobs during the strike. I mean, what is someone going to do if their what is someone going to get their car fixed by Vin Diesel, or having your pizza delivered by Morgan Freeman, or having your Waffle House ordered by Lana Del Rey? Wait a minute, the last one really happened. Oh, that's kind of strange now, isn't it? Anyways, so I kind of understood why she is upset, but I also understand what the SAG representatives is saying. Indie studios are willing to follow the rules and requests by the SAG Guild, and thus showing the actors aren't being entitled and their demands are reasonable. Same with workers. Not every writer and actor in the guild are rich and making millions on everyday work they do. They don't have all the mansions and vacation homes. They're still living paycheck to paycheck. Exactly, and that's actually the grand majority of it. All those big name celebrities and all the major movies, like the ones that you see in cinemas right now, they only represent a fraction of all the actors that are a part of the union. And I mean, keep in mind, this is just union actors. This doesn't even include all the non-union actors as well. Let's see. While I do completely understand where Sarah Silverman is coming from, and I appreciate her dedication to the strike, I do feel with the deal SAG-AFTRA made with indie studios is fair enough, and these celebrities need a job. So overall, I think she has good intentions. She's just blinded by rage and just feels upset. And I mean, like, there is an argument where you can understand why she is in that position, because like it's about her livelihood. You know, her job is in danger. So of course, like with this entire strike, like everyone is angry in this scenario. Everybody is upset with how the CEOs are treating writers and actors. It's just that sometimes that rage can be a bit uncontrollable depending on the person. So I mean, like, you know, even her, like, there is a bit of, you know, there is a bit of one side where, like, Sarah Silverman's emotions are pretty justified because she has every right to be angry about the fact that there even is a strike to begin with. The fact that, you know, actors and writers are left with no choice but to go and strike. You know, it's a situation where everyone is angry. Let's see now. On one hand, I can understand Sarah's passion and the actors need to get together to combat against greedy CEOs, and she was willing to learn after she got corrected. On the other hand, actors are still people who are looking for work, especially with companies who are willing to comply to what they want. Not to mention that if you try to demand to care about everything all the time, it can drain people's reserves for empathy and just makes them more likely to be annoyed or angry. Exactly. Like, if your anger is just going to sprout out more anger, then it's going to cause a lot more problems than solutions. Case in point, look at every discussion that happens on frickin' Twitter. And yes, I'm still calling it Twitter. Screw the X bullcrap. Like, they could keep on trying, but no, Twitter is still Twitter, yo. At least I'm helping the brand, unlike Elon Musk. I'm just saying. Okay, let's see. All right, I'll read one more comment before we go and jump into our next break. I understand where Sarah Silverman is coming from when it comes to the hypocrisy of actors working on indie films, but I feel like she didn't understand enough of the agreement of what SAG is doing as a way to help actors get jobs and some other places. She has good intentions, but didn't understand it right. Exactly, that's the whole situation. Yeah, actually, you know what? Let me just go and read one more comment here. After hearing all this, I would definitely love people to give indie projects more of a spotlight because I feel like people haven't been presenting them as much. Heck, AniMat's, I would for talk about indie animated shows like Lackadaisy, Hell of a Boss, or Lumi, and The Great Big Galaxy. Yeah, you know, I'm just going to say that, like, I was actually considering to talk about the Lackadaisy teaser trailer, considering that recently came out, along with the crowdfunding campaign, which is going extremely well. And as I'm recording this, it's actually near $1 million. But I decided honestly, I didn't know if it's actually like a truly indie or if it's something that would be considered scapping if I would talk about. So I didn't want to take any chances. All right. So with that said, we are going to go into another break, and I'm sorry to do this, folks, but it will be our last break, and we will be entering upon the grand finale. And with our next story that we are going to go and talk about, we've already talked about the fate of how things are going with original animated features and the possibility of how things are going with the strike. But with our next one, we are going to be talking about the possible fate of physical media. All right, folks, this is it. The time that we are going to go and cap this episode off with the grand finale. And with this grand finale, this is actually going to be something related to something that I am pretty passionate about, and that is physical media. And as you can see right behind me, I am a very avid collector of physical media, whether it be DVDs, Blu-rays, or I even have some 4K, believe it or not. Yes, I've been collecting them over the years, but considering that we are living in an age where things are becoming more and more digital, physical media has a bit less of a purpose. You know, less and less people are actually buying it. And we are at the point where there may be a possibility that sooner or later, physical media might fade away. In fact, that is actually what is happening in Australia, where it has actually been reported specifically from this website called The Digital Bits that they have confirmed that in Australia, Disney will no longer be releasing physical media. Now, specifically, I am going to go and read from my source here on the Digital Bits regarding that section where they did talk about no more physical media in Australia. As it states here, as to the matter of today's other Disney hot topic, I'm afraid the news is not good. Despite the fact that Sanity has now pulled down their original Facebook post announcing it, we at the Digital Bits have confirmed today with multiple industry distributors, distributor and retailer sources in the region that Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment is indeed pulling out of the Australian market in terms of physical media. This follows similar moves in Asia, except for Japan and Latin America, and the reason is apparently down to the gradual collapse of physical disc sales in the region, the growth of Disney Plus Star streaming, and also the rise of global retailers like Amazon and Zavi. None of that will be of any comfort to disc fans in Australia, who will now have to pay a hefty shipping premium to import titles from outside the country. But it is true that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 will be the last new release Disney title to get a physical release in the region. Previously released titles may continue to be available for purchase until the end of the year, but that will be up to the individual retailers. So this is not necessarily bringing up good news. And I know that maybe for some it sounds a little bit irrelevant. I mean, like, who cares with what the fridge is going on in Australia? Because I know that a good bunch of you are in North America, whether it be in the US, Canada, Mexico, or whatever. Or maybe there are some in the UK or in countries that, you know, they are still fine in terms of selling physical media such as DVDs, Blu-rays, and 4K. But the reason why I bring this up, and as a physical media collector, I feel like this is something that it kind of looms to, I know I've already said this before, but a dark reality that it is coming, that there is going to possibly be a time that they're going to stop releasing physical media, just period. Or at least some of the big main stores are no longer going to be selling them. Or at the very least, the big studios aren't going to directly go and release physical media. Now, I'm just going to state right now, do I think that physical media in general is going to be extinct? In my opinion, no. I think there are going to be some niche companies that will still specialize on releasing DVDs, Blu-rays, and many more. Like, we're still going to have stuff like Shout Factory that will still go and release physical media, no problem. I think those companies are still going to exist. I think those specialty ones, that they're going to remain, and they will still be selling DVDs, Blu-rays, and other forms of physical media. But when it comes to directly from the major corporations, like from Disney or Warner Brothers or Sony or Universal and stuff like that, I think there might be a moment where we are going to see less and less. In fact, even on this article, not only did they say that Australia is going to be finished in terms of what Disney will do, but I mean, like Asia is no longer doing it except for Japan and Latin America. And I honestly, I have yet to, I didn't do full research in terms of if it's just Disney doing so or if it's like all the companies that are no longer releasing physical media, but still, it does set a pretty dark precedence that it is going to be coming soon where North America and Europe might no longer be seeing that. In fact, one thing that I can actually personally express is regarding Walmart. Like, when I would go to my local Walmart, I have actually seen a bit of an evolution with what's been going on in terms of how they would go and release physical media. And I know that, like, with the Walmarts that I've been, like, they would go and like reorganize their stuff. Like, they would go and you know, try to change up where the aisles would be, and sometimes they would be pretty confusing. I know the last time I went to my local Walmart, it was absolutely jarring where all the aisles have all been switched up, and I kind of felt lost in an area where I have frequent a few times before. But in all seriousness, I have actually seen that in terms of the physical media that they would go and release, like, there is a decreasing amount. It would be like less and less and less and less and less. It's down to the point where, like, really the only places that you could go and buy are like a few new releases that they would have. And then you would have the one little section that is like the bargain bin, the ones that you can go and buy for $5 and that's it. You know, it's only those sections right there. I remember there used to be like aisles in the electronics section that is fully dedicated to physical media, like DVDs and Blu-rays, that they would sell those no problem. But now they're becoming less and less. And I can imagine that in big stores such as Walmart or Target or whatever, they're going to be no longer selling those DVDs and Blu-rays. And I've seen some other stores that, like, it's been years since they have fully stopped. So I can imagine that over time, we are going to be seeing a whole lot less of them being sold. Now, I know Disney is less encouraged to go and do so. I mean, like, yeah, they are technically still releasing a whole bunch of DVDs and Blu-rays and even re-releasing some stuff, especially for the 100th anniversary. Like, I know they are still doing that, but afterwards, it's going to be a mystery. I mean, like, there's no point for them anymore to go and release physical media. I mean, they've done so again and again, but there's no real purpose. Like, now they got Disney Plus, and I mean, that's going to be the real place where they're going to be putting out not just their new movies, but even their updated ones. Like, one thing that is a good example is regarding Cinderella, because for a while Disney has really been hyping up of the fact that they're going to be releasing a brand new restored version, one that's going to be even more clear and a lot more properly restored than what they did for the Blu-ray version. And they're going to go and fix that up, and they're planning to go and release that on Disney Plus. They didn't necessarily hype all that much in terms of a physical media release. Like, they didn't really go crazy and try to promote that coming soon there's going to be a new 4K disc of Cinderella, and that they'll also be doing that for Snow White. So that's honestly the big concerning thing, is that, yeah, there will be a future in which we are going to see less and less of the companies doing so, that we might see Disney doing it less. We're going to see Warner Brothers doing it less. We'll see Sony doing it less. We'll see Universal doing it less. You know, I can imagine that is going to happen. Again, I do believe that there is still that possibility that, I don't think that physical media is going to be fully extinct, because there are still going to be those specialty companies that will still be producing DVDs and Blu-rays, such as Shout Factory and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's just like, I'm just at a moment right now where I'm just bracing for that to happen. I'm still gonna go and buy physical media, no problem. Like, I'm still eagerly awaiting to go and buy the physical copy of Elemental and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I'm definitely gonna go and buy that, but I know there is going to be a point in my future where all the purchases I'll be making, it'll suddenly have to stop. It'll be at a point where I'll have no choice but to depend on streaming services such as Netflix and Disney Plus and several others to go and catch, like, whatever content would be online. It sucks, but, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if that would be the case. I mean, I could totally be wrong, and maybe they're still going to continue releasing physical media, or maybe we will see a point where physical media might suddenly make a comeback in the veins of, like, what we are seeing right now with records. I mean, like, if records can come back, then I don't see how physical media for movies and TV shows could also return too. But for now, though, it just feels like a pretty bleak future where, like, we are seeing some places such as Australia right now that they'll no longer have any physical media. So I don't know. We'll just wait and see. But I'm just saying that for as a physical media collector myself, I am noticing some of the changes that are happening, not just with what's been revealed in the news, but also in many of my local stores that are happening. And yeah, it's honestly concerning. So with that said and done, I would like to go into the chat wall. And now I would like to ask you all, how do you feel about the update in terms of physical media right now? And especially, you know what's interesting, if you are an Australian, and I mean, I highly doubt if you are, but if you are Australian, I would love to know your thoughts, especially on this. I don't know how many Australian physical media collectors that are fans of what I do, but honestly, I would love to know you specifically what it is, or your thoughts on the whole matter. And also, don't forget, like, this is your final chance to go and try to guess what the secret word of the day is. Like, if you can figure that out, then go and do it. Let's see what we got here. As much as I love physical media, it really feels like collectors like myself are losing the physical digital war. A digital and streaming age really is coming. All we can do is delay it. Though if I was given a choice to buy it and download digital versions of Blu-ray and DVD menus for features, I'd be okay with such a future. Or, I mean, you could be like me, like you could go and turn some of your collection into digital. I mean, like, I do have the softwares and the hardware in order to try that. In fact, that's what I've been doing with many of my videos, actually. Let's see now. This news is honestly scary to think in the long term. Physical media is such an important part for collectors with not just movies, but also video games and music CDs. Also, with physical media no longer in circulation, I felt it could also see a potential rise of piracy, where digital has a massive issue where it's possible to see movies and shows and video games being delisted. Look at what happened with the Wii U and 3DS eShops. Oh yeah, I mean, like, even right now, piracy is massively on the rise because of all the streaming that's been going on. Like right now, the prices for streaming, and especially in this economy, it's becoming so expensive that some people have no choice but to go and resort to piracy. Not to mention with all the content that streaming companies are taking out. Like, if I want to go see the entirety of Infinity War and I want to go up to like season 3 and season 4, I cannot go to Max and watch it. I have to resort to legit piracy to go and actually download them so that I can actually watch them myself. I mean, it really is at the point where like companies are really they're really screwing us over with streaming to the point that they really are justifying piracy. I mean, as bad as it is to say, like, it's just, that it's just, we are at the point where it's that. Anyways, this is an absolute tragedy for Australia. I heard from Dave Lee about the story, and I felt so sorry for him that he can no longer collect. I'm also a physical media fan as well, and I find it very concerning about it, but at least we still have Shout Factory and Criterion Collection. All we can do is support it. Well, then again, I'll support Criterion when it remembers to release animated films again. I mean, it's very nice that they release WALL-E, but I mean, keep up the pace. If you're going to regularly release stuff monthly, then I want to see some cartoons in those collections, Oh, let's see now. I am sad by this. I love DVDs and Blu-rays because the whole owning of the movie, having a physical copy, I might not feel so sad about it if not for WBD and Disney taking off their streaming exclusive contents randomly and with no other way of watching. I would like to have movies and shows close by me so I can watch it whenever. Unless they give some sort of alternative without outright pirated content, I don't trust that streaming only, especially. Yeah, exactly. The thing is that with streaming, you end up losing some control over your collection. I mean, yeah, like the streamers will go and give you a massive collection of movies and shows that you can watch, but technically you don't really control what you do own. You don't own any of this. You're pretty much lending it from a major corporation. So that sense of ownership and control is mostly gone with streaming. Let's see what else we have here. This is not good to see Disney's physical home media over in Australia to get shut down. I normally buy Blu-rays and 4Ks over at Best Buy, FYE, and Amazon sometimes, but hearing this might be a sign that at one point physical home media might be gone. I don't know if independent companies like Shout Factory, Arrow Video, or Criterion can save this, but it's not for long. By the way, the final word is original for Pee-wee, right? No, it's not, folks. It's not original. It's not anything like that. The big clue is that it is the second story in which I talked about the whole Paramount animation studio. And specifically, I repeated this word before I jumped into the story. So remember what I've talked about beforehand, that little piece of news before I talked about the main news. So keep that in mind. Let's see. I'm sure someone may get it. Let's see. What else do we have here? What are the comments? While I personally don't think physical media is going anywhere, I do still think with the evolution of watching entertainment, physical media is becoming less popular and not as many people are buying physical media. So overall, I do hope physical media will live on. All right. Let's see. What other comments do we have? Someone's trying to say, no, it's not IPs. It's not Infinity Train, folks. Okay. Let's see what we got. For those who love to collect physical media, I could certainly feel how terrible this news are for them. With how fickle digital media has been, especially with the recent news showing how fast they can disappear, physical media not only lets you keep it for much longer, but also makes it a lot more personal to you. Also, my final guess for the secret word are either streaming or franchise. No, it's not any of that, folks. It's not any of that. Keep on trying, folks. I'm sure you'll get it eventually. You'll get it. You'll get it, folks. It's a random word. It's a random word. Don't think too big. Think about this week, actually. Oh, okay. King got it close. Paramount. It's something related to Paramount, folks. It's something related. You're almost there. Almost, folks. Something related. Something this week. Something Paramount. So you are getting pretty close. All right. Are there any? Is there even one more comment to look into? Let's see. Oh, hold on a sec. Hold on a sec. Did someone say it? Did someone freaking say it? Studio PLKS. You got it, folks. Someone actually said it. It's the secret word of the day is turtles. Yes, I decided, you know what the fridge, I'll just go with turtles. Let's see what happens. I was surprised that a lot of people were having a bit of difficulties. Originally, I was thinking about horny jail, but then again, there's nothing that like people would get horny about in anything that I would really talk about here. Unless like, well, I mean, Sarah Silverman is a beautiful woman, but then again, like, I don't think there was a matter someone would go and say horny jail. So yeah, that was the quote of the day. Studio PLKS, congratulations, you said the secret word of the day. So yeah, that was my little tribute of Pee Wee Herman. And you know what? I think with that said and done, I think that should do it for this episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. So I just would like to go and say thank you all so much for joining me on this episode. It's definitely been a wild ride. I know that it is a bit unfortunate that we won't be talking about trailers until the strike is over, but it is for the best. And again, I stand in solidarity with all the strikers. And also, I just want to go and make a quick statement that if you would like to go and support the strike for both actors and for writers, then what you can do is actually donate to the Entertainment Community Fund. And all you have to do is go to entertainmentcommunity.org. And with that said, I also like to mention that if you guys would like to go and support my work, or if you want to go and follow more of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast, you could subscribe to me on my Twitch channel, Animat Live, and on the AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast YouTube channel. And on top of that, you can also follow me on whatever podcast service you're listening to, whether it be on Spotify, Google, Amazon, iTunes, and more. So with that said and done, I would like to say thank you all so much for listening. Thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, see you later, dudes.